Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, greetings and welcome back to everybody. At first, I want to put a potential disclaimer out for anyone whose bodies are infested with atrazine and may have a negative emotional response to the following presentation. To everybody else, whatever level of the onion that you have peeled back to get to the core, to reality, to the, the truth, I would appreciate your comments and your analysis. I don't have the quote in front of me, but something along the lines that it's been said that George Lucas made Star Wars for 12-year-old boys. And having been a 12-year-old boy, I believe that statement. I don't know, what was it? I was about that age when Return of the Jedi came out. I found it to be the weakest of the three. I had very little interest in buying teddy bears that were running around a forest. But many other people seem to enjoy them, so whatever works, works. But this isn't a critique of many Wookiees and weak plot points about a second Death Star or anything of that nature. This is an observation that I've made, and that is this statement that was made by Earl Davis.
Men don't need women. Women need men. If tomorrow they made artificial wombs, what would they need a woman for?
The concept of an artificial womb is the ability to gestate an unborn child without the need of a woman. And, woman is derived from man with a womb, all that crazy etymology there for you. Um, but going back to what she's suggesting is that both her, other online creators, such as Sandman, has suggested that this is what will happen. Even in the Aldous Huxley novel from nearly 100 years ago, states something similar with the concept of test tube children being everywhere. And we've had test tube children for decades. And but George Lucas took it a different approach. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that the concept of art imitating life and the reason behind Star Wars wasn't just a fantasy adventure series, but a means of incorporating ancient mythology, Perseus, Heracles, the Greek legends, the heroes. The word hero comes from the Greek, so, but those stories, those mythologies, whether Sumerian, Egyptian, Norse, uh, Greek, Roman, you get Virgil writing the Aeneid, and tracing the creation of Rome from the fall of Troy after the Iliad. So I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but a lot of time in our modern world with all of these technology everywhere, it's easy to think, well, okay, that was a completely different age, and those traditions, those lessons aren't applicable. And George Lucas said they are applicable, and this is how they're incorporated into a technological world. You have ancient priest kings with magical powers running around the universe. You have overbearing, bureaucratic, tyrannical government agents abusing their authority. You have farmers struggling to survive. You have a servant class in the droids that recognize that their plight is to suffer and do. And so George Lucas incorporates this, but it goes deeper beyond that. Earl Davis, Sandman, others have said artificial wombs. In the 90s, Dolly the sheep was cloned.
Apart from his pay, which is considerable, Fett demanded only one thing: an unaltered clone for himself. Pure genetic replication, no tampering with the structure to make it more docile, and no growth acceleration.
So what does test tube babies, cloning, artificial wombs have to do with this? This is not going to be a focus on technology progressing species. This is going to be a focus on the next layer of the onion, and that is this. What is it that Pearl Davis said at the beginning? She said men don't need women. And I'm going to demonstrate this by the examples of Jango Fett in his unaltered clone of Boba Fett, Shmi Skywalker, there was no father, and what resulted with Anakin Skywalker. In addition to that, the blindness of being raised by a religious fanatical order will be touched upon, and it will also incorporate that looking at the history of what happened to the previous generation's single mother and their offspring, what it was that caused Padme Amidala to give up living, knowing that she was going to be a single mother.
Who was his father?
There was no father.
The significance of no father, as she states, versus Jango Fett. It's been documented that the traditional nuclear family, the father, mother, in the home, raising the children, have the highest success rate. Then, almost identical numbers are the so-called single fathers, the fathers that are raising their children alone, without the mother, either through divorce or illness that they're not involved. The least successful by a wide margin is the single mother. That is the highest rate of chemical dependency, the highest rate of teen pregnancy, the highest rate of incarceration, the highest rate of education dropouts, as well as incompetence. When's the last time you went to a store and the clerk was incapable of providing change? And you can say, well, that's an education thing. But bottom line is, as fathers set the tone and set the boundaries, if they're not in the home, they aren't passing on their skills, and they're not setting these boundaries. And the children are suffering. And let's look at the result.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
So there's 2 points I want to cover right here. Number one is, well, 3 points. Number one is the temper tantrum, the lack of ability for emotional self-regulation. Number two, the step-parent conundrum. And number three is, the absent father, the actual father, who would have taught him not to have such an explosive reaction to a situation. Now, granted, you can say, but this is reacting to what happened to his mother, and he's upset. I understand where one would come from with that. But this is just one example of his inability to maintain composure. Now, the point that I brought up was the step-parent conundrum. And this is something that if you listen to men who have been involved with women who have children have talked about. And that is, the men have been expected to pay for things, but never get the accolades. They're not allowed to create the boundaries. There's the story that the man raised the child as his own all the way into adulthood, even paid for the college. Then when the day of getting married came, the biological father arrived on the scene, and everybody, the wife, the child, now adult, family members, were celebratory. The prodigal son, the prodigal father has returned, and we must treat them and exalt them as the king that we have missed for the last 20 some years. But you, step parent, are still paying for everything. You don't get the privilege of walking the adult child down the aisle. You're just expected to bankroll it as if that's all you're good for. But going back to the explosive reaction, Obi-Wan is the surrogate, the step parent. He wasn't up to the task, and he failed. He wasn't bonded to Anakin because he wasn't his son. He was his mentor. This is another reason that goes into it a bit as to nuclear traditional family over the state, the church, whatever entity raising your child. They're not invested in the outcome. They just want a productive worker bee. And that's what Obi-Wan wanted. That's what the council wanted. They wanted a servant who would do their bidding.